Good afternoon. We are finally going to go ahead and insert some CSS into our fitness project. And as you can see, this is the fitness website behind us on this web page. So I've already gone ahead and put the code in to make this video a little shorter. I will show you what we've done. So for example, the book lets us know that the CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and it's just for visual appeal to be able to go ahead and format our color, our text, margins, borders, and shadows. It starts off on page 140. It gives you a preview on page 141 on how it's going to look. So this is how it looks, the final product. And then, of course, you go step by step to do the coding itself. I do want to point out on page 141 that underneath figure 4-1, there is a roadmap that consists of 5 steps. This is sort of important to know in order for you to preview what the text is going to be about. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're creating a CSS style sheet. So the style sheet, the CSS file, I went ahead and I put view, layout, 2 columns. And when I clicked that, I was able to drag this particular Sublime file over to the right, and it sort of just lets me have my CSS separated from my HTML. And we talk a little bit about and later on in the chapter as to why we would want to have an external style sheet, why we would want to have our styles separated from the HTML content. So on the left side, I have all of my other files open. So when you go to open your files, you should have something very similar to mine, except I have my fitness folder, my root folder, saved on my desktop. And then, of course, if you needed to download any data files, you know to do so from Blackboard. So the data files are readily available on Blackboard. And you're going to want to make sure you have the same organization going as mine. So I have my fitness folder. And then my subfolders, I have my CSS, which now we actually have something in the CSS folder. And you should have named it styles.css. You don't have to if you're doing projects of your own, but it is a very common name, is to go ahead and make sure you also put that extension so that the computer knows that you're trying to create a CSS sheet. So that goes inside that folder. Then in images, remember, we went ahead in chapter 3 and put these images in there. We didn't change the names. That way we don't confuse ourselves. Media, we still don't have anything in there. Template. I want to go ahead and make sure you understand that the fitness.html file is the template file. Do not get that confused with the index or any of their web pages, because these have content inside of them. We have paragraphs. We have content that we've added. And the template is just that. It's just bare bones. It has no content except for just a wireframe that we keep copying and pasting in order to make other web pages from it. So don't get that confused, because I think that's the most confusing part about this fitness website project. I get a lot of students who start typing into the fitness template page and aren't creating these separate web pages. And then, of course, so far we have the index, the contact, and the About Us page. We haven't created the other ones yet. And it reminds you, in the book, if you take a moment to read on, I believe, page 140, it reminds you of the pages that we've created. It reminds you of the ones that we're going to create. So I think it says project, format web pages with CSS. In previous chapters, you created a website template and 3 web pages for the Forward Fitness Club website. And then it tells you added content to the links to the home page, About Us, Contact Us page. Okay, so just wanted to touch up on that. As we're looking at the code, you see that we put some comments. Comments are not necessary for HTML and CSS, but highly recommended, because it gives us a chance to let other developers know, and maybe reminders for ourselves. This was created today, February 7th. What does this style do? And notice how the comments in CSS are different than how you would do a comment on HTML. What I've noticed is really easy for me is to go ahead and use the same shortcut key that you use for the HTML, which is Control/, and that will go ahead and toggle the comments. Make it a comment, don't make it a comment. And that'll go ahead and, in case you forgot how to start a comment, that's the easiest way that I found to just go ahead and insert comments or make things into comments. Okay. The other thing that's really important is as you're going to, let me go ahead and work through this book with you. On page 142, so we're going to know exactly what CSS does for us by following what the book gives us as an example. Make sure that you've joined the Slack channel. Make sure that you understand that there's different channels. Right now we're focusing on the fitness website channel. I've added some resources for chapter 4. So definitely take a look at that. There's PowerPoint, some answers to critical thinking questions. I give you an explanation of inline versus embedded versus external CSS. And then, of course, we put other general announcements up there. Skills USA was today, so we had a student participate. So please make sure to look at that. We're always adding stuff to it. Marco's created a JavaScript challenge. We added that to it. But I definitely want you to be looking at this fitness website channel so that you can follow along. Okay, so CSS Zen Garden. This is what the book is referring to on page 142. It's just trying to show you what CSS does for a website. So the HTML is all the same on all of these. The HTML content, the paragraphs, the headings, everything is the same. The only reason these pages look different is because of the different CSS, the different style sheets that are on them. So for example, let's look at this one. The path to achievement. So what is this about? Participation. So you're looking at this web page and you're like, wow, okay, this looks like an interesting website. So then you go and you take a look at this one. And you notice, wait a minute, it looks like the same content is on here. Where is it? Participation. Where was the other one? So what is this about? The road to enlightenment. And you start seeing that all of the content is exactly the same. It just looks different. So you can achieve that by using different style sheets. Let's take a look at another one. Let's see. And you can just browse through all these. The road to enlightenment. So what is this about? So you start seeing that it's all the same. It just has different styles, different images, different ways of presenting it, different font, different colors, different layouts. So that's what CSS is. So it's a great example that the book gives you. Let's go ahead and bring back our fitness website. So we talked about style sheets. The latest version is CSS Dream. And then if you look at page 143, let's go ahead and look at that. It tells you that when you are doing your CSS, you are first creating a selector. So in this case, the selector, let's make sure I'm in the right. Oh, just kidding. It's on page 145. Page 145, the selector is this part. So for example, the first selector you're going to be creating a style for is body, which means it's going to affect all of this inside the body tags. So all of this is going to be affected by this style, which is what we want. We want the background color to be this, which is kind of a yellow color. This would be the first channel, which is red, the second channel, green, and this is the blue. So learn a little bit more about colors, but right now we just want to make sure you understand that this is the selector, this is the property, background color, and this is the value. So when we look at our forward fitness, the body is all the same color that we put on our style sheet. And if you use the inspect tool, which is something that I want you to become familiar with, you can go ahead and click on an element. So let's go ahead and click on the body, and it'll highlight the body, and then right next to it, or depending on how you have your inspect tool set up, it will show you the CSS. So this is the CSS, this is the HTML. So right now I'm pointing at the body, so you see how it highlights all of it. And you can go ahead and inspect it and see where there's a check mark. You can turn off the CSS. You can say, you know what, I don't really like that background color. Let me turn it off. Or I want to change the background color, and you can change it on here as well. And then it will change it. Remember, you have for your hexadecimals, you can also use RGB, but let's say I use, it's still going to be kind of a yellow. I want to give it a different kind. Let's say I use okay, so like for example that color. So I haven't actually changed this on my code. It's still that same color. I've only changed it on the browser while I'm inspecting, and I'm fooling around with the code on here to see what else I have to do or what else I can do. So definitely use the inspect tool. Another thing we can inspect is, for example, if I want to look at this image and I'm trying to figure out where I put it in my HTML. So it's as easy as dragging this, or not dragging it, but clicking on this tool and then clicking on the element, and it'll say, oh, here it is. It's underneath your header. You inserted this image. It's underneath your header. Did you have any CSS to it? And I do. I have some CSS on the header, and you can see it down here. So I believe we centered it, and we did some other things to it. So you can see what these do. Also, another thing I want to go ahead and point out is this box down here. Now remember that when we're looking at the HTML CSS, we're working with box elements. Now, even though things may look like they might be a circle or they're rounded, it's still a box. We just added a border radius. So therefore, if I take that off, it's back to looking like a box. But this right here is very helpful so that you can kind of start seeing what is the element, what padding does, what the border does. And I'll go ahead and add those onto it so I can show you what the difference is, because we need to make sure we're familiar with padding, border, margin, and this will really help you out when you're understanding what those properties do. So if you take a look, for example, let's look at that margin bottom. Margin is what separates the elements. So for example, right here on the left, we have our margin. Right here on the right, we have our margin, whereas padding is inside. So what's here inside of the box is what padding is going to do. And then, of course, the border is what's around it. So that's what this is trying to show you. Okay, so let me go back to my editor. So these are all the styles that we are going to work through, and you're going to add as you're going through the chapter. A cool resource that I want to show you. A lot of fonts, when you get to fonts, I believe it was font family, and I believe that was under, let me look, where was font family at? Wow, I'm already at 13 minutes. Want to keep this short. Okay, font family. The book tells us to add Verdana, Arial, sans serif. And this is what comes up when we look at it here on the page. Okay, so that's this font. Is it for this one? I forget which one it was for. For the main. So the main. Okay, so I want to show you something really quick. You don't have to rely on just fonts that are on your computer. You can go to Google. You can go to Google Fonts, and you can go ahead and pick any font that you like. Let's go with one that really sticks out so that you can see it. Let's go on one that's short so I don't have to type so much. Let's go with, I don't know, maybe Satisfy. Let's do this one because it kind of shows a cursive on it. Let's click on the plus that adds it. That adds it pretty much to, I guess, a cart, if you would. You can customize it here. And then when you're done, it'll also tell you if it's going to load fast. So let's go ahead and say, yes, that's the one I want. And we're going to go to Embed, Standard. You must put this, just like you do for your style sheet, which we haven't really covered just yet, but you must put this at the top, and it tells you, embed your selected font into a web page. Copy this code into the head of your HTML document. So let's do that, just so I can show you what that does. I want to go beyond the book a little bit here. So this added the style sheet. And I'm going to paste this under it because we're going to be using a font from Google Fonts. And now I'm going to go to this font family, and instead of using this font, I'm going to use the font that we just downloaded. And if you forgot what it was called, it'll tell you right here inside the link. So in this case, it's Satisfy. And also, if you don't know how to insert it, make sure you look down here. It says you put this into your CSS. So it's Satisfy, comma, cursive. So Satisfy, comma, cursive. And you have to put some apostrophes. Oh, and I forgot to put the closing one. Okay, so let's see if this works. Let's refresh it, save it, and then refresh it. Okay, did it work? Let's inspect it to make sure. So it's supposed to be Satisfy cursive. So there it is, the font family. So you can see the difference. Okay, I mean, you don't have to do this, but it's definitely something that's really cool to know. But you must include this into the head, then use this into your CSS. Okay, so that was just something cool I wanted to show you. I can always edit, undo, so that I can go back to the original, because I don't want to confuse you too much, because I do want you to do what the book is telling you. You can always do these for your own business website, incorporate Google Fonts or whatever else that you want to do. I'll go ahead and delete this now. Another thing, so we're going to want to add this style sheet, a link to be able to utilize this style sheet for all of the web pages. Now, I only added it to the index because I want to show you how to add it to the other ones. This is what I mean. So the book does a good job covering this. Let me go ahead and show you what I mean. So when you go to the fitness website, let's refresh it. So we took away that font family. Now, this is the home page. If I go to About Us, you'll notice that there is no CSS in the About Us. You can tell right away there's no yellow background. So let me go back to the home. Okay, so the home does have CSS. You can see the nav bar is centered, there's borders, and the background is yellow. When I go back to Sublime, I'm going to want to copy the same link to the other web pages in order for the same CSS, this all to be applied to those web pages. First, let me go ahead and show you a quick shortcut before I just paste it on there. When you go into your head tag, you can just go ahead and type link tab, and it will go ahead and insert all of that for you. And then you can just go ahead and say, well, I know it's in my CSS folder, / styles is the name of it, .css. It's as easy as that. Sublime does it for you. But if you already have this, then you may as well just paste it, copy and paste it onto all the other ones instead of having to type it all out. Now that's going to incorporate the CSS style sheet into all of my other web pages. Okay, and then of course save it. If you want to save all of your changes, just go to Save All. Go back to your browser, and now it should apply all of the styles to the rest of the pages. So that's what CSS does. I believe this video is, oh, we haven't created this page yet. That's why it's not working. Don't freak out. It just hasn't been created yet. And the contact does. This video is getting pretty long, so I'm going to try and fast forward a little bit. Talked about padding, IDs versus classes. You'll notice that we're using one ID, which is the container. And then as far as classes, we're using the equip class for all of the images. Classes, if you're going to use it more than once. So when you look at your HTML, you can see that you have classes, or you have the equip class on the About Us page. And you're using that more than once. You're using it on this image. Oh, where is it? Yep, right here. You're using it on this image, on the weights. You're using it on this one. So if you're going to use it more than once, your validator is not going to like it if you have more than one ID. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you use class. Class is always a period and then the name of it. An ID is always a hashtag and then the name of it. So container, we're only using once. We only need one container, and that's why you only see that up there once. Okay, so that's the IDs versus classes. Taught you how to link the style sheet to all of your other web pages. Some cool resources. I put them up here. Lorem Ipsum. Let's talk about that. This is great to be able to not have to worry about the content. You can go ahead and just put some placeholder text. And this is a great website to go to. If you just click or Google search Lorem Ipsum generator, they'll have some funny ones that will go ahead and generate some content. It's just a bunch of gibberish. But you can say, I need 5 paragraphs. And then you just copy and paste this over to your paragraph tags in case you just don't have time to come up with the content and you just want to see how it looks. So Lorem Ipsum is what we use. Another resource, CSS Tricks. This one's a nice resource for CSS. Lots of cool stuff, updated information about CSS. And then, of course, your validator. You are using something different than HTML to validate your code. It'll tell you if there's any errors, just like you did for HTML. And I think that is it. Of course, there's a lot to cover with CSS, but I just want to definitely introduce you to it. And then I want to make sure that you're not getting confused with the fitness project. And I'm determined to finish this whole book because I know as soon as it gets into the responsive design, I get a lot of questions, and I want to make sure I have a video for my in-class students and online students. So hopefully this helps. Definitely email me or come into class if you have any trouble. Use the Slack channel. It gives your other peers a chance to help you out. And then remember, as a web developer, if something doesn't work, you just have to keep debugging and researching, and there's a lot of resources out there. But hopefully you're not too stuck, and come to us and we will definitely help you out. Okay, thank you. Join us for chapter 5.